Righty ho, everyone. Welcome to a brand new week of Trading Buddies. It's good to have you on board. And my trading buddy will be joining me very, very shortly. But those of you who've been here for a while, you're our trading buddies. We're all buddies and we're all trading. Definition, isn't it? Pretty easy to work out. Hope your weekend was good. And mine was very, very busy, I've got to say. And I haven't spent much time in front of the charts at all today. So I'm kind of in catch-up mode. But I do see that on Friday, I haven't been in front of the chart since Thursday, really. I did a bit of analysis yesterday for the Sunday show. But yeah, I see Friday was a bit of a bad old day for the pound here. But look at that. Bit of a, oh, hang on. I better share my screen, hadn't I? Apologies for that. Yeah, I can see it. I know what I'm looking at, but you guys probably not. Okay, you are now looking at my pound US dollar chart, no doubt. So yes, have we got a bit of a double bottom formation there on the hourly chart? Perhaps we have. Perhaps we are in that range still. Looks to me that that might be the case. We've got an actual interesting little slingshot scenario going on up here with this trade line. But we'll get to that later on when I do go through my analysis. First up, of course, it is, do we trade the breakout or do we not? That is the number one question. And as I said, Ash and I have been going back through and creating the journal more than going through it. And we have come across a few, or have identified a few spots that we need to filter out. And one of them is, if the breakout has already occurred, why would we be trading breakouts? And it's a very good question, I've got to say. So have we broken out? Are we in a range? That's the question. Well, certainly we're in a bigger range. There's no question in my mind. But today, are we in a range? Well, I suppose today we're in a bit of a range. Is the bigger picture on daily charts a bit of a range, or is it not? Most definitely, as I said, up here, yes. We're at the bottom of that range. We've potentially got a double bottom. We've potentially got a higher low here. So my bias is always going to be to the upside. Do we trade the breakout today is the question. Gap makes it even more interesting. Look, I've probably got to say that we are in a range, but then you've got to say, okay, have we broken out of that range? But now we're kind of back in it as well. So this thing's not clinical. It's not absolutely down pat yet. We haven't got a firm rule around it, but we do believe that if there is no range, or indeed if the range is broken and we've gone into trend, then we shouldn't be trading. But I don't see that. I don't see that we've gone into trend here. We're at the bottom of a range as far as I'm concerned, and I'm okay to trade today. So that is my stance. We will be trading the breakout, and I'll be using the last three bars, 1, 2, 3. Gee, that looks like a good target up there, doesn't it? Daily pivot, and even the weekly pivot, which appear to have changed, haven't they? Daily's crossed the weekly and the monthly. Significant, maybe. Maybe it is. Maybe this is on its way down. We will see. Entry level for the breakout trade today will be above that high, and that will be 1.3862. So we can put that in. 1.3862. The stop loss will be underneath that bar. Or am I getting a different number? 1.3845 will be the stop loss for the long. TP1 will be half of that risk. So the risk is 17. We'll use 8 pips and go to 1.3870. That'll be TP1. TP2 will be double the risk, which will be 34 pips, which will bring us in at 1.3896. Okay, so that's this analysis that Ash and I have been doing is definitely going to change the way we trade this. There's no question about that. But until we've got it down pat, we're up to the last couple of weeks, and we'll be going over those this week. So we will be next week trading this far differently. All right, the short underneath this bar here, and 1.3835 will be the entry. 1.3835. The stop loss will be 1.3858. And TP1, the risk is what, 23 pips, so that'll be 11. 1.3824 will be first take profit. And the second take profit will be what did I say it was? 23 pips, 46. That brings us to 1.3789, if my maths is correct. Okay, there we go. So let's put those in the market. The buy stop. Again, if you're joining us for the first time, this is a test system, not a proven system. So we will not be putting any meaningful money on this. 1.3862 is the entry level. And the stop loss, 1.3845. Okay, there's the buy. You can't see the entry, but you can certainly see the stop loss. The sell, and again, for those of you joining for the first time or unfamiliar with what we're doing here, we place both a long and a short order, and whichever one is triggered, we cancel the other. And I'll explain the take profits for you in just a second. The sell stop is at 1.3835. And the sell stop is at, stop loss, sorry, is at 1.3858. Okay, there we go. All right, for those of you, again, here for the first time, I had some lines on this chart earlier. I don't know where they've gone. So we've got the entry for the long in place here with the stop loss underneath it. We've got the entry for the short here with the stop loss above it. Our first take profits is half of the pip risk that we take. So in the case of the long, we've got a 17 pip differential between entry and stop loss. We halve that and round it down to 8 pips. So we add 8 pips to that. And that brings us in at 1.3870 for our first take profit, which is pretty much there-ish. Close enough. The second take profit for the long is double the risk. So in this case, 17 becomes 34. 34 above there becomes 1.3896, which is about there somewhere. That'll do. For the short, same applies. Half the risk is our first take profit, and that's at 3824, which is about there. And the second take profit, 1.3789, which is about there somewhere. Bang on. All right, so I'll just use those as visuals because I'm trading this manually. I'll just take profits, fingers crossed, of course, if and when they become available. So back to the analysis of this pair. If I was trading this today, I'd be looking to trade the range because it does look to have gone into a nice little range there. 4-hour chart won't be any different and really brings clarity into that range, doesn't it? I believe. So I might even use the 4-hour chart as our range. And throw a rectangle around. Where does it begin? 2 equal highs is what I'm looking for. So we're probably in that vicinity. And 2 equal lows is the next thing I'm looking for. We're probably in that vicinity there. I can use the close or open close and the tails. It doesn't matter. And that looks pretty clear to me. That's the bottom of the range. That's the top of the range. Really haven't reached the bottom, to be fair, but oftentimes that's the case. It's not 100%. So I'll still be looking for a higher low to trade this long today. That would be my want. Obviously, we've got a gap down over the weekend, and that has closed. We haven't really got anything more to say on pound US dollar, except that I'll be looking to trade this on a smaller time frame to the daily pivot. That's kind of one of my favorite plays. So if we get the opportunity to do that, and it's always best to trade long off support. So that support line there would be of interest to me. Actually, that candle there is of interest to me. The reason I wouldn't like to trade it, that's the last print on M30, is because we're trading straight into the high of the day, which is something that I don't do without profit in the bank. So there's no room to take profit here. So I'm looking for, this is probably break down here, a little bit of consolidation, back above, retest, and away we go. That's probably plan A on the pound. There would be another option, of course. We could trade it as a breakout of resistance, but we need to come away from this area now because we've gone tap, 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 can't get through. So I think the breakdown back to this area, get back above it and retest it. I think that's the cool way to go. For the pound now, euro dollar is also one that we like to trade. And as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, I plan to trade euro dollar on the small time frames during London session from this day forward, because it's kind of where I began my trading journey, guys. And I see no reason why I should reject that, because there's never been a reason to reject it. It's always been quite a reliable currency pair to trade. And that, you know, that's no surprise. It's the most traded currency pair, right? And therefore, the volume's generally there at this time of day. And you generally get a reasonable read on what can and, well, I shouldn't say should happen, because that's just not a thing, is it? The should happen and the does happen are often poles apart. But today, yeah, look, I'm still looking for this level here to be hit, I suppose. Has it been hit? From a horizontal perspective, you've probably got to say, yes, it has. And we've come off that. Yeah, that makes it a little bit more interesting to me. And I suppose if I'm saying that the pound is in a range, then I've probably got to say that the euro is in a range as well. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to be looking short, I would think, at this point. Not that I am. So I'll probably be looking to trade this back towards the pivots on the smaller time frames. And at the moment, it's exactly the same chart as we have on pound US dollar. So opportunities may knock on the door, but they will take a little while to form. Again, I've got the resistance trade line. I could trade as a breakout of that. I've got the support trade line. I could trade as a false break, and that's exactly where I'll be focusing my attention. So exactly the same chart, no different. And this is more a dollar story, I think, than it is a pound or euro story. Again, a nice little dip below this level would be good. Take out all the stops here, and then get back above, retest it, and then we can look to trade it long. Obviously, we wouldn't take profit before the daily pivot or at the daily pivot. So I'll be watching that. There's no need to do anything right now because we're not in a tradable situation. I'll, when I do my analysis, come back and show you what the week looked like from through my eyes, and it was all about the Aussie. It's those four pairs there that I was focusing on, and that's where I'll be focusing my attention in the very next analysis session that we do when we said g'day to Ash. G'day, buddy.
Hello, mate. How's things?
Yeah, pretty good. You awake? Oh, yeah, he's concentrating. There's a trade coming, guys. I can feel it.
No, well, I wish there was. I was just watching EasyJet, actually.
No?
We've had some news over here that European travel bans are potentially going to be back in place during the summer. So EasyJet has had a really nice run to the upside, and it has hit a point of resistance. And a friend of mine was actually he bought shares in this, and I said, probably be careful around about this level because there could be a bit of a range, and then we don't know which way the range will go. But then over the weekend we have this news, and I think, okay, well actually that's a pretty good point to try and take a short with EasyJet. But it's already gapped down this morning. It started the morning down straight away, around about 3% on the gap, and now it's down 8.5%. So I'm looking for it to come back up, at least test the gap line. And then try and sell it off, but I can't justify getting in here. I am watching it because of there's a lot of movement right now, high pickup in volatility, but not tradable as yet. So I'll keep a cursory view on that one anyway in the background. And actually, a bit of softness in the markets right away across the board. So good morning, Lewis. So let's have a quick look if you finished, mate, for a bit.
Yeah, I have. Jaira's got a couple of ideas. I'm just having a look at, pardon me, Dollar Sing. And he's thinking Dollar Sing short at the moment. I can see why. I'm pretty sure he likes this trade line through here and the current bar giving us a perfect slingshot scenario. Is it perfect is the question. And I always go back to these things called market structures. And I think the market structure here, once again, is pretty clear. And that's probably going to eliminate, it won't eliminate a small time frame trade, because I think we can go to the bottom here. That's no problem. And look for another bounce. But whilst ever we're in the middle of a range, it's really difficult to say and have a clear direction. But what I do see is bounce off the bottom, higher, 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 low, question mark. So yeah, direction here is pretty tough. Daily pivot, weekly pivot, very close together, suggesting that price won't go too far away from there. It is Monday, which means that we could stay in that zone all day without too much volume. But the markets seem to be moving, Ash. I'm not sure what caused the gap over the weekend. Haven't spent any time in front of the charts, unfortunately, or in front of the news. So there's something going on.
Yes, well, there's a few things. I mean, there was a soft session from Asia coming over from Japan, but there's a bit of tension between the United States and China, and I wonder whether that might have
just for a change.
Yeah. But, new administration, same story. So I think there was a bit of a face-off actually with some of the warships. So I haven't read the story in detail as yet, but I did see the headline, and I know that there has been tension kind of building. Joe Biden seems to have a different stance on China, and actually, from what I'm hearing, it appears to be a bit more aggressive, surprisingly, than Donald Trump. The way that Donald Trump tried to handle China, which was a bit more go all guns blazing and then recoil quite drastically and dramatically, and say that they're great pals. So very different with Joe Biden, and I don't think he's going to go all guns blazing and then do the same thing where he starts to retreat. I think it's probably going to remain. I think that the rhetoric will probably remain. There's also been just some bubblings up with Russia as well quite recently. With the UK, their argument about building further investments in nuclear deterrence is because of Russia. So there's a bit of tension just picking up, right across the globe right now with some of those kind of those the normal names that you see, and I think from the weekend, I'm actually forgetting the warships from the weekend. There was a meeting between America and Russia, and straight away, I think America effectively attacked, not Russia, sorry, China. America attacked their treatment of some of the people. They attacked the situation in Hong Kong, and then China came straight back and said, your foreign policy is not a good reflection of democracy at all. So it was kind of gloves off. There was no there was really no backing down from either side, and I think those tensions have actually built up a bit over the weekend. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that the US Russia the US-China trade tension come back into play at some point. Now, I don't know whether that's why we're seeing markets a bit looser this morning, or whether it's, again, down to that 10-year bond yield, which has come off a little bit. So it would suggest that it probably isn't that. But if we look across the board, and let's look at some of these markets, Aussie 200,
Yes,
and
please do.
yeah, so when we're looking at the indices, Aussie 200 doesn't suggest it's a global problem. It's actually having a pretty good day so far today. This is the China Stocks 50. Now this is moving to the downside, but this is today's bar, which is relatively stable. Now I think this is where it's going to get interesting.
We need your chart, mate. I think.
Oh, sorry.
I think we're still on one.
There we go.
Most of Australia is underwater at the. Well, sorry, most of the east coast of Australia is underwater at the moment.
Oh, really?
Really bad floods. Really bad.
Well, this is the Aussie 200 index. So no indication there, and this is the chart. This is a daily chart, so these are the daily bars. But this is where I think it gets interesting. That travel ban that's not travel ban, the travel advice that the UK effectively the travel part of the government are giving to their citizens is that the travel ban may not be lifted. Now, as I say, I'm seeing that expressed in EasyJet currently down near 8.5%. It dripped all the way down to 10% lower this morning. But this is where we'll sit in an indice. A travel block. Now, I just saw Lewis saying that there's lots of Germans in Mallorca or Mallorca. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I haven't read that. That certainly will help the Spanish economy. But let's remember,
isn't that where Shukri's pissing off to?
No, I think he was going to the Seychelles, wasn't he?
What, Seychelles. I thought that's where he and Simon are going to parlez-vous, are they? I don't.
I think so. But so it's going to be expressed more in the E35, which is the IBEX. This is the Spanish indice. So if we hear more rhetoric coming out about travel bans or travel advice not to be traveling, then tourism is going to get hit, and tourism's a big thing in Spain. So if we want to express it with an index, then expressing it through the E35 would be a decent way to do it. Now you can see where the trend line is, and we have broken straight through that trend line this morning, and it looks to me like there's a bit of a gap as well. Well, there is a gap. It gaps straight down on top of the trend line. Now it's down through. So if we were going to trade this, why is that line move for me? That's a bit annoying. Here we go. Let's tighten this back up again on the 4-hour. Now, if we were going to trade this, then we'd want to see it back up here, and if it came back up to 84.72, I'm looking at this on Fusion just so everybody can have a decent look at it. So 84.72 around 84, 64, 65, something like that would be an interesting point. Now let's bring in a pivot as well, pivot chart, and have a look what that would look like. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Anything near that daily pivot in this area here, I think is a trade to the downside. I thought, and I'd be really interested in that. I'm not sure whether it's going to get there today. It might get there over the course of the week, but I'm not sure if it's going to get there today. But we'd be looking for downside. So playing this to the upside now, long to go short, is an option, but not one that I'd be that keen on. Okay, so let's continue through. Euro Stocks 50. Again, a bit of a gap down. A slightly different picture when you look at the Euro Stocks 50 because it does have a bit more of a basket in there than what's going on with Spain. France in all sorts of trouble because, yes, the tourism story is going to be affecting them, but the big thing is that they may be going into a new lockdown. So, in fact, I think they've gone into a new lockdown. So, France, again, the FRA 40, another one that would be a decent short. You look at this on the weekly, and you can see that it is at a point of genuine resistance here. This is a sell zone on the broader picture. And then you get that story which suggests sell it. It's telling you really that story is now saying that this is good to go for a move to the downside. So we're really just looking for a setup with this. And again, back to that daily pivot would look pretty good. Now let's just mark that off. Because this one, yeah, look at that. That looks good. Look at that resistance zone there. Decent horizontal level right on top of the daily pivot. And let's have a look at this as well. and there's not a fib there actually. It's right between the two more important fibs of the 50 and the 38. So maybe even the weekly pivot could start looking more interesting, but that story's not going to help them. Germany, always a different story. Autos in Germany has been a pretty solid industry and a pretty solid sector. And we're not seeing this broken down. So what we're really getting here is maybe more of an idea of what is driving the market, and it seems to be multifaceted. So to put our finger on and say it's the tension between the US and China, or it's the fact that we've had a weak session in Japan, or is this travel ban? It's going to be different. And I would have thought that if it was the tension between the US and China, we would have seen them all much, much lower. So that would suggest that that's probably not the case. It's probably not the tension with the US and China. We've done the HK50, I think, already. Which again hasn't really broken down significantly. So I'd like to play right now. This is the Japanese. This is what I was talking about with the Nikkei. Nikkei, significantly lower from the open and continues to drift to the downside currently. But we'd have to find out what that was about. The Nasdaq just getting a little bit of a boost to the upside currently, and we talked about the Nasdaq in some detail last week because we took a short in the Nasdaq. I'm not sure if you guys got on board with that, but really interesting. We talked about the Nasdaq coming down to an inverted head and shoulders, and that's exactly what's happened. Look at where the pattern is playing out here. Really, really interesting. And now it's a case of if you are long, you are looking at the inverted head and shoulders, and if you are short, you are looking at the first lower high, which is in this area that we currently sit. So with a Nasdaq, you can really express your belief because the technicals could actually point pretty cleanly in either way. I'll say pretty cleanly because it's not absolutely brilliant, but it's okay. Look at that. Inverted head and shoulders coming down here on this 4-hour chart would suggest that, and we have bounced off that inverted head and shoulders horizontal shoulder line as well. Look at this, right the way across there. Beautiful, beautiful bounce off there. Now, do we think that this is going higher? If we do, then we were going to be trading it right the way back to the neckline up here. Do we think this is going lower? If we do, then we would be trading it probably short from around about this area. So only halfway home to the monthly pivot. Yes, you could look for another short here, but it would suggest that if you want to get short, you'd want to start building positions here. I would have thought that would probably be a better option. And what we should always look out for with the Nasdaq, really, right now, it seems to be very, very prevalent, is that 10-year yield, and the 10-year yield has just eased off a little bit this morning, mate. Getting to the FTSE. The FTSE also doesn't really know exactly what it wants to do right now. Pretty decent support line along here. And just for transparency, I am building into positions long again with the FTSE, but I'm doing it on a basis of taking no leverage and just I'm trading this. There's obviously many ways you could trade one market. There's many ways you can trade every market, but in this particular scenario, I think the FTSE comes lower, and because I think it comes lower, I'd like to kind of like spread some positions out. So I have taken a long here, but I'm not taking a long here with the idea this is bouncing at this particular point. What I'm looking at is the bigger picture with the FTSE, which is that we are only halfway home to the upside, and I think it has been a bit of an underperformer. But these bars suggest there could be some problems ahead. So any sort of any movement to the downside, I'm going to just pick it up and pick it up and pick it up and pick it up, and then look for the turn, because I don't think that the markets are going down to its lows again before it gets up here. So bigger picture, I think with the FTSE is upside, but maybe on the shorter term it could be a little bit sticky in this area. Now, finally, gold, I think we need to certainly mention as well, because gold has struggled when it got back up to attempting to form a bottom, which it may still be doing, but this is not looking good for gold. It's still struggling to get up to. Now, that monthly pivot is screaming, isn't it? Go short here. So that's what it's telling us, traders. Go short at 1775. or if you like 1774, it's somewhere in that area. So a long to go short would be okay with gold. It's only ever okay to go long to go short because you're really fighting against what you're really trying to do and really trying to express. But if you take a smaller position here and try and get the long on, when you double up, you're only at half risk, to the downside. The issue for gold is the story is just not there now. It's the 10-year coming off should help gold a little bit more, but the story is not quite building in the way that I think we thought we would hear it. I think that everybody's waiting for that inflation to really kick in, some really serious inflation. And it's creeping, mate. It's there, but it's only creeping forward. Now, you mentioned the Aussie earlier, and I think the Aussie is an interesting one as well. I think the Aussie, for some downside, is starting to look fairly evident when you look at COT data. And we haven't seen anything too much on the Aussie yen, but look at the Aussie CAD. There is this downtrend going on with the Aussie CAD. The Swissy, I think, is
you
an
can
interesting.
understand the CAD, I think, because the CAD's so strong, also on the back of oil. But
Absolutely right.
there's nothing wrong with the Canadian economy either.
No,
it's got to be high on your list of buys, I would have thought.
Well, do you know, it's interesting you say that, mate. I had a really good look at the
Although it's
Canadian.
Potentially overbought.
Yes, it could be overbought, yeah. But as you say, I mean, I had a good look at the Canadian economy over the weekend, and what was quite notable was I thought their balance sheet was actually in pretty good shape in comparison to many other nations. So yeah, I'll make you right on that, and that would suggest that if you were going to go short on the Aussie, you'd probably want something like the CAD. I think the Swissy's an interesting one, to try and take on a short. The trend hasn't changed yet, so if you want to be a trend trader, then trading this Aussie Swissy right now doesn't look like it's on. Same with the Aussie Kiwi, and looking at the Aussie dollar, this is a little bit all over the place. It doesn't really know where it's going right now, and that would suggest
there's
the
a nice
dollar
little slingshot set up there, though.
Yeah, well, I would have thought
later.
it looks really good for range trading. Some of these things do look pretty good for range trading. Euro still looks
I
pretty
think Lewis is onto it as well.
Yeah,
there are a lot of ranges. I'm starting to get interested.
Yeah, and probably around about time as well, because we've seen some pretty strong trends off the back of last year. So we're probably about due for a bit of range. And also, mate, talking of that, I looked at the fundamentals, I looked at the cotton, I looked at the seasonality, and it did actually say this week, if you were to take all those things into account, be really careful, because we're probably likely to hit a little bit of I'm not so sure kind of in the market. When I looked at the fundamentals, they all were back in line where, they've all remained in line with the picture that we started to build over the course of the last 3 months. Nothing is really standing out, which does suggest that ranges could well be in play if things are overbought and oversold. So even the euro, which I think is probably, for me, it's probably the one that I would favour the most for a further move to the downside. Even the euro hasn't shifted fundamentally, significantly as yet. So yeah, I would say that the ranges could well be in play this week. Certainly for the first half. Yeah. But I don't really have too much more than that
week. What's going to drive us?
Well, that's a good question and a good point to make, because actually, quite a lot for us to trade in some respects, or for us to look for. Let me make sure I've got all of them ticked here. Yeah, quite a lot for all of us to go for. I mean, not too much today. We do have Chairman Powell out today, and I think inflation is going to be the story and the story and the story. So anything that does suggest an inflation conversation is going to be of interest. He's out again tomorrow. Unemployment numbers from the UK, and Governor Bailey from the UK as well. A bit of flash PMI, so a bit of inflation data coming out of Australia. But I think it starts to get interesting really from Wednesday, where we start to see some inflation numbers. We start to see how strong some of these economies are. The French economy, the German economy. Does this flash services and flash manufacturing PMI push that FR 40, the CAC on, down further? If we've managed to get in our short with a CAC on after seeing a potential lockdown, do these numbers push them down further? Because weak numbers here suggest that we're not coming from a very strong base. So for the French economy to be shutting down without a strong base could be fairly significant for the move in the CAC on this week. So this is where it starts to get interesting, I think, when it gets to Wednesday, and a lot of speakers really throughout the week from the United States. I think also looking at the Swissy, we just discussed the Swissy, and this would suggest that maybe we should look next week. What ends up happening after the SNB policy rate and after the assessment as well, after the statement is made, what happens to the SNB? And if it does suggest that we see some strength in the Swissy, maybe an Aussie short at that particular point against the Swissy could be quite interesting, or even a dollar short. The market may well have moved significantly before that, considering the slew of data, but GDP numbers as well from the United States, plus some unemployment claims, which are going to become more and more important with what's been said by Jerome Powell. And then we have a Euro summit and some retail sales. So we get a look at the consumer. So back end of the week, mate, really picking up. It's really picking up. Question is, do people want to get a position before that, or do they just want to try and take a few chunks out of the market before that, which I think would probably be the better play, if I'm honest.
But up and down might be good. Trade to support.
I think so.
Bounce to resistance.
Yeah.
Sounds like my style. I like it.
Yeah. I think your style might be good this week.
Aussie's going to be interesting because we're really copping a pounding over here again. I know we're not the only country in the world that's happening to, but we've had drought, bushfires. Now we've got major flooding, and COVID hasn't gone away. So again, a lot of countries have been through all of those processes as well, but it's our turn at the moment. It's really, really having a big effect on the farming communities in particular. So not sure what that means in big terms. If it was happening in Western Australia and there was no iron ore being mined, for instance, or coal or whatever, copper and tin and zinc and blah, 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 it may have a big effect on the economy, number one. The interesting part becomes when you have these natural disasters, the sudden impact or the immediate impact is potentially negative. But what happens as a result of that, once you've had a major disaster, the insurance money comes back into Australia because all the insurance is held offshore. It's all underwritten offshore. So when that insurance money comes through, it will tend to give you a little bit of a boost in the dollar because everything's been transferred back into Australian dollars. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Aussie in the next couple of months. And I wouldn't mind saying I'm kind of on the same boat as you with a major retracement. But thereafter, once we hit a decent support level, if it is in a couple of months' time, I think I'll be turning into an Aussie buyer pretty quickly.
Yeah. Lewis mentioning in Turkey as well. I totally forgot that. And the central banker over in Turkey has been sacked, I think, or he's certainly been moved on, and the Turkish lira absolutely plummeted. So yes, that could affect the euro as well. So it's a bit of uncertainty out there, mate. It's quite a lot of uncertainty today in the world.
Yeah, I think so.
And that would suggest gold, wouldn't it? I mean, it's interesting, really, that we're seeing like that weakness in gold, because that would suggest gold, but gold is not really getting a boost so far.
Yeah, and maybe yen, maybe Swissy, but
yes.
I don't see any fans. I don't
Not
see
yet.
any fans about it at the moment. No.
Not yet. I mean, and
But,
it's interesting, isn't it, with the timing of this stuff? Because there's one thing trading a news event, and there's one thing kind of trading an announcement, but there's another thing actually trading it the way that people would need to participate and express themselves. Because as we talked about on last week, I think it was, if you hold a position from March the 1st, 2020, really you don't want to sell it until March the 2nd, 2021, because of the tax that the short-term tax that you'll pay anything before the year. So you might get this news event coming out, and there might be something bubbling in the background. But if it's only bubbling, it probably won't really get expressed until there's certain things that can be cleared. If you hold a stock and it's about to pay a dividend, the last thing you really want to do is dump the stock, even if the price of the commodity that it trades in is not doing so well. So timing with this stuff could be multifaceted. I mean, it didn't seem to matter with the Turkish lira, as I say. That is a genuine disruptor. So if you see a genuine disruptor, it's a completely different picture. But when things are just sort of bubbling around in the background, there might be just a little bit more we need to see before things are toppled over. And I do think it might be towards the end of the week. That's the way that I'm seeing it right now, mate.
okay, should we look at some currency pairs?
Let's do that. Yeah, let's see what slingshots could actually shape up.
Okay, well, I haven't gone too far, only apart from the analysis that I do before the Sunday show, but we can certainly have a bit of a look around the place and see if there's anything that does stand out. There's the pound. We're just shy of TP1 by about half a pip or something. We'll just keep our eye on that for a second, just in case it does bob through there. Very, very close now. And there we go, half a pip again. Just doesn't want to go through that 38.69 level, does it, for some reason? It'll get there. I'm pretty confident we're headed for daily pivot here. There you go. So take your first profit there on the pound.
Nicely done, mate.
That's done, and stops now to, what do we take? 8 pips. So 8 pips from entry would be 38.54. Okay, so we don't need to worry about that anymore. That's all good. As I said, this is in the range, so I'm actually interested in trading this pound US dollar and to the upside. Now, as I'm sure all of you guys who've been here for a while are aware, I'm a massive bear on the US dollar. Just got to get the right circumstances. Maybe this is not the right circumstances, but I think we're pretty okay trading this on a short-term basis inside ranges. If we do hit support, then I think we're pretty cool chasing those longs to resistance. Problem you've got here today, of course, is going to be the three stooges sitting here, daily, weekly, and monthly pivot, and they're all, you could throw a handkerchief over them and not miss any. So it's going to be tough for price to get through there today, one would have thought, from a resistance point of view. But if I were to see price maybe get through the daily, hit the weekly or the monthly better still, then pull back, and maybe you see where the stop loss is, that would be a decent level to pull back to, I would have thought. Or if we get to the monthly pivot, pull back to the daily. If there's a higher low in here somewhere, anywhere in this vicinity, I think you're entitled to take that to the top. So that'll be my focus on pound US dollar. But let's go back to my analysis for the week. And I think there's actually a trade here somewhere. Let me have a look. You've got to acknowledge that we're pretty much, and I said this last night in the show, we're at what's known in the business as inflection points. And that means it's going to go one way or the other. It's not completely binary, but when you get to these areas, it pretty much does become binary. We're either going long or we're going short. And sometimes it's very, very difficult to know which is the best way to go. And that's where it becomes tricky to trade, of course. But that's where your market structures come into play. And that's where I generally start to look at ranges. So, and I call these ranges, of course, anything that's bouncing from one to the other and continues to do so, I call a range. And I've actually got one here at the moment. The question mark is, are we in a downtrend? Because the premise of this trade, which is, and I've pointed this out to you guys many times before, I'm sure, when you've got a key reversal bar, which is what this is, key reversal bar, for those of you who don't know, is a bar whose high is higher than the previous bar, and it can be any time frame, bigger time frame the better, and the following bar is an inside bar. And when that's the case, you place an order underneath the inside bar and you put your stop loss above the inside bar. In this case, I wouldn't do that. I'd put the stop loss above the previous bar. You could even trade that bar. I don't trade seller bars to the downside, and that's why I haven't placed that order. But I also haven't placed this order, which I should have placed, and I'm going to place now. If I can actually get in, I should have gone to this earlier because it hadn't moved. 1.1039 would be the entry. Are we too late? Yeah, probably too late for this, but it might come back and we'll get another opportunity. So sell stop 1.1039, and I will go about 0.25% on this just for kicks. And now it's gone away from me, you little ferret. And the stop loss, we haven't worked out yet. I'm going to put it above this bar, which will be above the weekly pivot and above the top of the range, which is probably wise. 1.1085. So this is Euro Swissy, and it's short. And there we go. It allowed us to trade it. That's cool. I'll put this up here for you so you can see it. If I can remember the levels, I didn't write them down. It's a fatal mistake. Whoops, wrong. Let me change that again. Sorry. So this is really a range trade, but it's also taking advantage of a chart pattern that I like. Euro Swissy, sell, and the level was, for those of you who've got good memories, wasn't there. 39, wasn't it? Yep, 1.1039. Stop loss was 1.1085, as I recall. And we'll work out a take profit area. Okay, so our risk is 46 pips. Our first take profit looks pretty clear to me, and it is there. We'll call it 1.1005. $1.1005. TP2, I don't think. Well, it's clear, isn't it? Really, it's the monthly pivot. If it goes down very, very fast, then I'll have to consider the bottom of the range as a second take profit area, or certainly a stops to entry area, because when it hits that level, in particular, if it is here, I would expect to bounce at that point. So it depends on what your risk profile is. If you want to stay in, then happy days. I think this has got potential to actually get down to this level at least, round about there somewhere. So 108.50, something like that. So there's a couple of hundred pips available here if we get it right for a 45 pip risk. So that's why I think this is a reasonable position to take. May not pull up, may not come off, but if it does, then I think we're in reasonable shape. But I've got every reason to think that this can go short here, although there is a little bit of momentum to the upside. Let's see how that pans out. Now, back to the Aussie pairs. Now, if I was trading on Friday morning, I would have picked this up because that's just one of my favourite plays, right? That rejection bar off the weekly pivot with a white bodied bar, yum. You got to eat those up. Happened again up here, and it's happened again. Look at the consistency of this. Once it turned round, weekly pivot, bang, weekly pivot, bang, weekly pivot, potential bang. It's not there yet. It's too late now to get into this, I would have thought. And this goes to what we were talking about earlier, Ash, with Aussie CAD. I think you've got every reason to think that the CAD is a far stronger proposition than the Aussie currently. And again, as I said before, this may not last for a long time. But gee whiz, I think there's something available here. You know, you're potentially down to there, down to the 92 mark. There's 400 odd pips available there if it pans out. So I'm a little bit sorry I didn't have a look on Friday morning.
Right on that support level, though, isn't it, mate? I mean, that's a pretty strong buy level.
Right now it is.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll see what pans out there. But I would much prefer to be in this than not at the moment. We'll see. We shall see. I don't have any. Well, look, to be fair, if it did come up here, and as you suggest, there is a buy level, but if it would have come back up here, in particular, you can see the two pivots together. If we were to poke our nose above here and then duck back underneath it and retest that confluence area, then I'd be more than happy to go again on Aussie CAD short.
Looks like short-term plays today. I mean, it just looks like quite short-term plays today is what we're going to get. And as we were talking about earlier, it looks like it might well be a bit of a kind of range day. So going long here on the Aussie, I think you've got a pretty good chance that it's not going to break down too far. How you manage the trade is obviously a question, and I'm not just suggesting you go long without any management, but from what it appears today, the weekly pivot will likely be tested.
Oh, and the daily pivot, of course, because that's what it does.
Yeah.
So that's as yet untested, in my mind anyway. If you have a look at the 1 hour chart, that might tend to suggest that we nearly got there. Well, it does suggest we nearly got there. Close the gap, and I can see that coming again, no question. As I said, that would be my best entry if we get up to here and then come back below and retest. Then I'm more than happy to trade it short.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side of that, Aussie US dollar, I was prepared to trade long. Now, I haven't really got a good reason to do that, except that it's got a beautiful little slingshot set up there. And those of you who know that will know that that's the setup. So we've broken through that resistance trade line. We've really retested everything. Retested Thursday's daily pivot, the monthly pivot, now the weekly pivot. The only problem, of course, is we're headed in the opposite direction. That's never a deterrent for me. I would use that as either a shot over the bow, or there'll be plenty of people looking at that going, okay, we've hit the right shoulder. We're going to sell this here. And that appears to have been enacted to some degree. But it hasn't really broken through a neckline yet, which is around about that vicinity. So this is probably a far better place to pick it up from. If price were to come down here and do one of two things. Number one, Let me find a pen here somewhere. Number one, and this is always, this is my MO. So this is me in absolute capsule form. This is going to come down to here. There's no guarantee of that. If it does, one of two things is going to happen. It's going to break through that and keep going. But hopefully, if it does do that, it'll come back and retest that area in particular at that confluence. Then it becomes a sell. But if it sneaks back above that trade line, then comes back and retests that area, then it becomes a buy for me. Even riskier there. Or, if you've got big kahunas, you could take the buy at that point. But I'd certainly be taking the buy at that point. And this little area here is giving me fair warning that if price goes back to that level, it's going to retest that high at the very least. And again, that plays, I suppose, into what we've just been talking about for the whole show. And that is, there's a potential range here. So, we can trade that for a month if it stays there. And I'm more than happy if that's the case, because it's giving us fair warning that that this is going to happen. We will see. But that's the way I'll play that. And, as I said before, if you want to know how I trade, you've just about seen it in a nutshell. Once I get the support, it's going to do one of two things. It's going to go bang, bang, or it's going to go back up there and then that way. That's it for me. And if I can play that with inside ranges, then it becomes all the more powerful. Okay, so that was the third of my watch list. The fourth, again, was Aussie Kiwi. And you can see with the Aussie that I'm all over the shop. I'm willing to trade in either direction, depending on which I'm trading it against. I think against the Kiwi, it's got a shot at going long also. And that might surprise you from this chart, because really what I'll be looking for here, or what I should be looking for here, is a lower high. Again, gap down this morning, but this is also very clear to me that we closed above the range, above the resistance trade line, came back and retested it. And that bar there is really interesting, because it is a rejection bar of, and I know it's a soft level, but it's a rejection bar of that level, pretty much where price is at the moment, which is where that spike ended up. Then we went into range, break out the top. But interestingly, that bar there didn't really want to come too far into this bar. So I think that's a potential buy here. I hate buying at that level, but if price does come back here, I think we've got a real good shot at this going to that level. So I'm very aware of that. Not sure how I'm going to play it at the moment, but as always, as I've just described to you, if we come to a support level, I'll be looking for this to bounce, either bounce off it, give me a higher low, or back underneath it, back above it, retest it. Same thing really at the end of the day. I'll be looking for that higher low and then to trade long. Now, if I do see a significant lower high as a result of that, so this will look something like this. So if price does come down to here and go up, maybe to that weekly pivot level, and give me a rejection bar of that level that is not black-bodied but white-bodied, but looks something like that, then I would certainly put a stop loss there and an entry there. The trade line is tricky, however. I'd much prefer to see it break it so I can get my entry underneath it. But, this could go either way. Absolutely could go either way. And I'm always of the opinion that if it's not going to do that, then it's going to do that. So if it doesn't do that, then I'm of the opinion that it's going to do that. So that's where I am on the Aussie pairs. I'm more than happy to go either way, because I can see a case for both. And Aussie Kiwi is one of those, because we're at the top of range. And I think I'll go through and do a little bit more analysis through the charts before tomorrow, and pick out a few more ranges for you that I think are eminently tradable. But those I've pointed out to you so far are among the top. But I haven't looked too far, haven't looked too hard, and I think that there are plenty around. Well, the current issue in Australia, won't you see Aussie will weaken for a while? Lewis, as I said, I'm not sure of that. Really not sure of that, because as bad as the flood situation is, it's all underwritten. And until the resources that we're constantly selling overseas come under threat, and that may be down the track with stuff like wheat, and produce, but it's not affecting things like coal and iron ore, and all the precious metals. So that market there will probably determine the direction of the Aussies. Whilst ever those commodities remain in a reasonably strong position, I don't think the Aussie will be under threat too much, because that's where the money comes from. That's what everyone buys. So I think it'll be okay for a while. And then if it does come off, once the insurance money, and there'll be many, many billions of dollars come in, once that happens, then I think the Aussie's on a pretty sound footing. Euro pound H4 and D1, just to finish my little segment off. Let me have a look at that. Euro pound, it's a toughie euro pound. You've got to be on your toes to get that one, I'll tell you. It's almost as bad as dollar. No, nothing's as bad as dollar yen. Take that back. Euro pound. Righto, the big picture. There's the big picture as far as I'm concerned. And once again, we've got a range. I think I spoke about this 2 or 3 weeks ago, saying that I was keen to get long, but I had to see it come down to here first. And I don't think we've seen that. In fact, it's just been kind of there and thereabouts for the last, this is the weekly chart, for the last few weeks. So that bar there would have got a lot of people interested in the long, I would have thought, but it really hasn't moved too much since that time. There's a little bit of a hint of a double bottom sitting there at a reasonable level. So potentially everything's there. It could go either way. I'm not prepared to call that at the moment, to be honest. But if I'm sticking to my guns, then I'm still thinking short to get long. Again, that old saying. If I look at this chart, the 4 hour, which is the one you alluded to, or actually questioned on, then I see a double cross on the weekly pivot, which does interest me. But then I see something else. I see an untested daily pivot. So to trade away from that at this point is not a brilliant idea as far as I'm concerned. However, we do have a strong base that's been formed here. You would think that a higher low sitting on that daily pivot would be an excellent way to go. So if this candle could actually make its way down here and then finish up looking exactly like that, sitting there, then I would look to trade it long. You could speculate, no question, that you've got a double cross of the weekly pivot, but you've got the untested daily pivot at the moment, and you've also got that level bang ahead of you. It might be a little bit higher, to be fair. It could well be there. It could well be there, but it ain't too far away. So I wouldn't be ready to trade this long at the moment. I'd wait for a daily pivot test at least. And then if you do get that higher low, I'd be happy to do so. On the hourly chart, therefore, my only direction would be short. And I don't see a short set up at the moment. So it's just right at this point in time, a no-go zone for me. But I've got a clear picture of what I'll do if it does, as I've said. Price has not touched the bottom. Pound US dollar hasn't touched the bottom of the range. Did I say that earlier? Yeah, I talked about that earlier. And it's not a golden rule that it does. And maybe I've even got that low in the wrong place, or the low of that range. Maybe the low belongs at the open close here, which now makes that a different story entirely, doesn't it? Because it has touched the bottom. And that's why it's not crystal clear. It's not clear cut, because that level is really a cloud of a price. Are we going to use the high and low? Are we going to use the open close? And that's why I say you can use either. And I'm more than happy to say that that's good enough for me. I'm looking for that higher low. So yeah, never. And I think horizontal levels are very much always like that, unless you've got an absolute crystal clear over a long period of time level that is exact. And I don't think that's the case often. You've got to treat those levels as, maybe 10, 15 on a small time frame, maybe 10, 15 pips either side. On a 30-minute time frame, you'd like to be a little bit more exact, but on a 4-hour, I'd like to see that, a little bit of tolerance given there. So I'm going to say that's good enough for me for a bottom. I think I'm up to date, mate.
Good stuff, mate. Yeah, I'm up to date too. I don't think there's too much else to do. I'm going to wait for some things to really pull back. I mean, there was, say, a gap down this morning. It's been difficult to get on board. I'm looking at EasyJet, so I'm therefore looking at the IBEX. So if anybody's interested in trading the travel story, then look at that ES35, because that's probably where it's going to be expressed the best, and we'll see what happens with that. But it's got to come back a bit first. Don't want to jump in here, even though I think ultimately it's probably going to go quite a bit lower. It's just not the right timing. So for right now, it's going to be a little bit quiet maybe for the next hour. EasyJet stabilize a little bit, so I might get on board with that, and let's see if the IBEX can do the same.
Lewis, which actual, is that a currency pair or ashes? The Fibbo. Cable. Okay. From on this chart on the range. So from here, 61. Is that what we're looking for? Fair way to go. Up to here, or are you talking? Are you saying from the previous bottom, you want at least a 61.8 retracement? Is that what we're saying? I'm not sure. Low on 4 Feb to high on 24 Feb. Low on 4 Feb. Where's 4 Feb? Oh, you're talking bigger picture. Okay. Right. So you're looking at 4 Feb, 24 Feb. This low to this high. God, I can't see anything. Let me go a bit tighter so we can work this out. So there's your Fibbo there. Right. Okay. I can see what you're saying. I don't use Fibbos. I don't mind throwing them on to give me a little bit more confidence. That certainly doesn't hurt. So looks okay to me, Lewis. Yeah. It's come off there once before. We're back there for a third time. Why not? We're at the bottom. I just call it a range and trade the range, but more than happy for you to use the Fibbo if that works. So we're done, buddy?
Yes, I think we are, mate. I think we are. But just be a little bit careful today. I would suggest. The market looks like it's going to move, but I'm not sure. That the initial blast that we've had in some of these markets has subsided somewhat, and we might just get a bit of an arbitrary movement. And I'd say I had a quick look at the VIX, and the VIX is just on its knees. It's not doing anything, so it doesn't suggest high volatility. Even though we got a few gaps in the market, it doesn't suggest high volatility. So yeah, be careful today. I would suggest maybe a research day, unless you can find some ranges.
Haven't updated a couple of trades for a while. Pound Kiwis one, and I actually did want to have a look at this today because I think we've got a scaling point if we wanted to take it. It'll be another breakout area. How long have we been in this now? 3 weeks.
Nice work.
Yeah, look, I can see a nice break and retest of our range. So, if you wanted to add to the position, I think you could add to the position there. If you're really keen, you could preempt that move by finding another entry point. I don't see one at the moment. Again, we're talking the same thing. I see this is going into range at the moment. Weekly pivot, daily pivot. You could spend 2 days in here. You could spend 3 days in here without too much trouble. So when it does clear out, then I think that break and retest area is interesting. I will likely, in fact, I will say it at this point, I will put another entry in long here above this level. It's risky because you're trading straight at the highs. Maybe if you put it 5 to 10 pips above, you might be in good shape. The other is Euro CAD. And Euro CAD, how long we've now been in that? 2 months and 2 weeks. And we're still on positive swaps, which is a good thing. There's no reason to do anything here, except if you want to cover your position, now would be a reasonable time to do that, because the potential for this to bounce now is pretty strong, I would have thought. Where will it bounce to? I don't think it's going to bounce to our stop loss. So I'm more than willing just to leave it. I'm not going to do anything. And when it does get to that level, I'll probably be looking to scale into this one as well, because we're free trading both trades. We've got our stop loss at entry on this one. I think we've got our stop loss at entry on the other as well. No, we don't. So we're only got a free trade here. We haven't got a guaranteed winner, but yeah, I'm more than willing to go along there, and on EuroCAD, more than willing to add to the position if it does go back to that level there. So, 150-50 area, I'll be looking for a rejection bar to get back into that, taking profit at the trend line maybe. We shall see. But yeah, wow. How long are we going to be in this? I said till Christmas time would probably be the case, and it may yet be. We will see.
That's really good, mate. We short on that, right? Yeah.
Euro Swissy till next Christmas. Well, hope so. More than happy for that.
Euro Swissy. It's not just 1 pip below and then it just pops you up just the day after.
Yeah. Euro Swissy. What's happening on Euro Swissy? Oh, we're in that. Okay, we're in the trade. Cool. 1039, 1005. We got 26 pips to go. So we need another good seller bar, and that'll be good on Euro Swissy. See how we go, guys. That's it for now. We'll see you at Christmas time. Okay, that'd be pretty cool. If it keeps moving, that is. If it goes into a range, it'd be pretty boring. But if it kept moving, it'd be nice. So, mate, it's crypto day tomorrow.
Crypto day tomorrow. Yeah, looking forward to that. I think Shugri had a pretty good session over the weekend by all accounts. Interesting to know what he's.
I don't know how he stays awake, man.
No, well, I know he was saying he was buying some more of the currency that you've got some. I think he was looking for some Kasama, so I'm not sure how that's turned out.
Yeah.
Bitcoin
I haven't bought any more yet.
No, you looking to get some more though?
Well, I don't normally buy things that are $350 or something, which means it's going to be near $500 Australian. I don't normally buy stuff at that level, but who knows?
Yeah,
who knows? I'll think about it.
Okay, mate. All right. Well, everybody have a great afternoon or a great evening, depending where you are in the world, or great morning. And Jeff and I will be back to do it all again tomorrow with the Crypto King, and see if we're going to the moon.
Absolutely. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.